Lebanon government keeps the search for the victims of the Beirut port explosion. The government also declared a state of emergency for the next 2 weeks while they are receiving international aid. Brazil's Supreme Court analyzes the sentence of the forces to government the Jair Bolsonaro to protect the indigenous people during COVID-19 pandemic. Tropical storm Isaias pounded the U.S. eastern seaboard with driving rains and strong winds. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Laura Palmero. Lebanon government keeps the search for the victims of the Beirut port explosion. The government also declared a state of emergency for the next 2 weeks while they are receiving international aid. Rescuers continue the search for survivors after the blast caused devastation across entire neighborhoods, plunging the nation deeper into crisis. So far has been reported 135 deaths and almost 5,000 wounded. The explosion was felt as far away as Cyprus, around 150 miles northwest. The governor of Beirut, Marwan Abu, described the disaster as an apocalyptic situation and estimated that it might have made 300,000 people temporarily homeless and would cost the country over $3 billion. Moments later, the Lebanese president and cabinet members held a minute of silence before holding a meeting at the presidential palace at Babda.
No words can describe the horror of the disaster that has hit Beirut last night, turning it to a disaster-stricken city. It is time to grieve for our martyrs, wounded and missing. There is no doubt that shock is tremendous among all the Lebanese to whom I appeal today to show solidarity and mutual assistance in order for us to overcome, together, the catastrophic effects that go way beyond Lebanon's endurance during the harsh economic and health circumstances under which it succumbs.
Satellite images courtesy of CNES released on August 5, 2020 shows a view to the port of Beirut before and after the devastating explosion that occurred yesterday. On Wednesday afternoon, the Russian government sent humanitarian aid in response to the devastating explosion in Lebanon's capital. The Russian Ministry of Emergency said the 5 aircraft were sent as humanitarian aid to alleviate the consequences of the strong explosion. In the face of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Russian government also sent epidemiology specialists along with a mobile laboratory to carry out COVID-19 tests on site. Russian President Vladimir Putin sent his condolences to Lebanon's President Michael Aoun, while Senator Oleg Morozov pointed out that Russia is willing to help Lebanon investigate to the accident if it receives such a request from the Arab nation. The Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis sends his condolences to the people of Lebanon as an army transport plane with a rescue team was dispatched to Beirut.
My deepest condolences and thoughts go out to the people of Lebanon, and especially Beirut, following this tragic explosion we all saw yesterday. A C-130 has already taken off with men and women from the Hellenic rescue team, as the Lebanese authorities have requested human resources for search and rescue operations. We are ready to assist with additional medical equipment, as I imagine that as the hours and days pass, we will better understand the magnitude of this unprecedented tragedy.
Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel sent his condolences to the President of the Lebanese Republic for the explosions that killed hundreds of people and injured thousands. The message expresses the Cuban people's solidarity with the victims and their families, as well as with all the Lebanese. On Wednesday, Qatar sent a C-17 aircraft with a field hospital and medical aid to Lebanon to help alleviate mounting pressure on its strained healthcare system in the wake of the blast of the devastated Peru. Pope Francis has offered prayers for the victims, their families, and for Lebanon after the enormous explosion in Beirut's port on Tuesday.
agli anziani e ai sofferenti.
Yesterday in Beirut, in the port area, a very strong series of explosions caused dozens of deaths, thousands of wounded, and serious destruction. We are praying for the victims and their family members, and we are praying for Lebanon because, with the efforts of all of its social groups, political and religious, it can face this tragic and painful moment. And with the help of the international community, it can overcome the grave crisis it is going through.
And in France, the Le Cigaloun campsite in Martigues near Marseille was completely devastated by the fire that hit the region and led to the evacuation of more than 2,700 people. Evacuations were undertaken on Tuesday night, some by boat, from homes and campsites in southern France, as forest fires tore through some 1,000 hectares of vegetation. According to officials, about 1,800 firefighters battled blazes fanned by strong winds overnight, and 14 of them were injured. No civilians were hurt so far. Welcome back to From the South. In Brazil, the ruling which compels President Jair Bolsonaro to protect the indigenous people during the pandemic of the novel coronavirus is still being evaluated by the Supreme Federal Court. Magistrates of the top judicial body pointed out that the indigenous population of Brazil is protected by the constitutional framework. In view of this, the plenary of the Supreme Court requested the establishment of health measures to guarantee the attention of the different native communities, which are being hit by the effects of the pandemic. The Amazon Basin and indigenous Ecuadorian groups presented the international campaign Stop the Extradition in the Amazon, which seeks to look for the life of the region's communities. Today we are here to demand justice for our community. We are facing again the impacts of the oil spread and the landslides. The Supreme Court of Brazil decided to withdraw the complaint made by the ex-minister Antonio Palocci against the former president Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. With a vote and 2 against, the Supreme Court dismissed the complaint of former Minister Palocci following Lula's defense request. The team of lawyers that represent the Brazilian leader claimed that the report was made 6 days before the 2018 elections, which is a violation of impartiality. Palocci's complaint was included by then federal Judge Sergio Moro days prior to the first round of the presidential elections. The Workers' Party, Lula's political platform, and the defense attorney believe that this is another evidence of Moro's political agenda. The judge became Minister of Justice under the government of Jair Bolsonaro, but resigned due to conflicts with the far-right politician. Venezuela has rejected the statements made by the Special Representative for Venezuela, Elliot Abrams, and senators who attended the hearing of the Foreign Affairs Committee for Upper House, where they restarted illegal and interfering strategies against the Latin American nation. During the hearing held on Tuesday, Abrams reiterated his support for coup tactics and opposition lawmaker Juan Guaidó, as did other Republican senators, although some of them questioned the performance of Donald Trump's representative. The Venezuelan government rejected the accusations and once again condemned the coercive and illegal measures unilaterally imposed by Washington. The Democratic Party representatives criticized Abrams' historic strike on failure and misdirection, as well as his strategy to intervene in Venezuela's internal affairs. In Nicaragua, Carlos Fonseca Terán, leader of the Sandinista National Liberation Front, called to dismantle the media campaign blaming his party for a fire inside Managua's Metropolitan Cathedral. Fonseca assured that the Sandinistas did not start the fire, as the co-plotters maliciously affirmed and the Episcopal Conference has irresponsibly insinuated. He also made reference to the FSLN historical program, which establishes respect for Nicaraguans' religions, a principle that defines the model promoted by the revolution in defined as Christian, socialist, and solidary. Although the National Police investigations argue that the fire that destroyed the Trisentimental Church on Friday could have been started by Sandinistas, Fonseca believes that if it has this intention, it would be the responsibility of those who carried out the failed coup attempt in 2018. The Mashnikov Latin America Institute of Biotechnology in Managua, Nicaragua, represents, according to Russian Vice Foreign Minister Sergei Ryakov, the insignia project of its country's cooperation with Latin America. Diplomatic statements took place in the framework of the virtual conference on constructive cooperation after COVID-19. The second in command of the Russian Foreign Affairs Minister also highlighted its country's commitment to multilateralism, mutual cooperation, peace, and international security. The Vice President of the Nicaraguan government, Rosario Murillo, indicated that Mashnikov Institute has qualified people and technology to produce any vaccine, including the one to prevent COVID-19. In an interview with Telesur, Jaime Zuluaga, PhD in Law and Political Science, said that the house arrest warrant issued by Colombia's Supreme Court of Justice against former President Álvaro Uribe strengthens the autonomy and independence of the country's judicial system.
And it is very important in the country's current situation, where the court was subject to a series of political pressures by the Democratic Center Party and by other sectors of Colombian society, warning of the possible consequences if a measure of this nature was implemented. What the court has done in an unanimous decision by ordering former President Uribe to be put under house arrest is an assertion of the autonomy and independence of the Supreme Court of Justice, and this is undoubtedly a step forward in the institutional strengthening of the country.
Peru shows the worst situation of all Latin American countries regarding the impact of the novel coronavirus. There are more than 430,000 COVID-19 cases and 20,000 related deaths. Hospitals are struggling to cope with the rising number of patients, and healthcare workers have protested against the lack of protective equipment. Deaths from coronavirus, according to the Ministry of Health, rose to 196 in 24 hours, while infections rose to 6,790 new cases. Peru has also reported increases in domestic violence under coronavirus lockdowns. The new political crisis that confronts Peru by not obtaining the acceptance of the Congress for the new cabinet of the Prime Minister Pedro Cateriano forces President Martín Vizcarra to prepare a new ministerial team in no more than 72 hours.
Respetuoso de las leyes.
With respect to the law, as I have always been since the beginning of my government, and according to Article 133 of the Constitution, I accept the Congress decision, and in accordance, I will define a new cabinet in the time that the law establishes.
Conformaré un nuevo gabinete en el plazo.
CARICOM Secretary General Ambassador Irwin LaRocque has congratulated Dr. Irfan Ali on his assumption to office as Guyana's 9th executive president, and said he looks forward to meet the new president as a member of the Conference of CARICOM Head of Governments in its next meeting. Dr. Ali took the oath as president after his People Progressive Party was declared winner of the country's March 2nd general elections, following an extended period of challenges. CARICOM Secretary General assured that the people of Guyana have entrusted the new president with their leadership in a complicated context for the country's economic future. The head of CARICOM also offered on behalf of the Caribbean community its full support for the government and people from Guyana in an effort to ensure a prosperous and secure future for the country. And we have more stories coming up after this final break, so stay with us.
Telesur, desde nuestra cuarentena aquí en nuestro hogar, siempre con Chávez, nuestras felicitaciones. 15 años defendiendo la verdad de América Latina y del Caribe, de los pueblos del sur, 15 años ganando la batalla comunicacional, la batalla simbólica, la batalla por la verdad. Felicidades Telesur, todo nuestro amor y admiración. No exagero cuando digo que Telesur es la mejor televisora mundial en materia de noticias, la mejor en toda la línea de la calidad. Felicidades Telesur, una obra fundada por nuestro comandante infinito Hugo Chávez, por el comandante Fidel Castro Ruz. Es la obra de ellos, su milagro, que sigue vivo.
Felicitaciones Telesur, felicitaciones a todo el personal, a todos los periodistas, a todo el personal de Telesur por esa extraordinaria labor que día a día hacen de llevar la noticia veraz y oportuna a hogares en muchas partes del mundo. Felicitaciones.
Felicidades. 15 años.
Welcome back to From the South. Tropical storm Isaias pounded the U.S. eastern seaboard with driving rain and strong winds on Tuesday, cutting power to over 1 million households and felling trees, including in New York. At least 4 people died as a result of the storm. Wind gusts up to 78 kilometers per hour wreaked havoc across eastern states, littering streets with debris, closing roads and forcing the cancellation of scores of flights. Public transportation services were also briefly suspended, including New York's famous Staten Island ferry. In New Jersey, where Governor Phil Murphy declared a state of emergency ahead of Isaias' arrival, video footage showed a roof being turned off a house as residents were told to stay indoors amid the threat of tornadoes. Isaias quickly moved up to East Coast after slamming into the coast of North Carolina overnight with hurricane strength before being downgraded to a tropical storm. During a briefing at the White House, U.S. President Donald Trump urges Americans to remain alert and follow the guidance as a storm Isaias pounds the U.S. eastern seaboard with driving rain and strong winds.
I also want to provide the latest on tropical storm Isaias. Approximately 600,000 are without power along the East Coast, and utility companies are working around the clock to restore service as quickly as possible. I spoke to Governor. My administration is monitoring the situation very closely. We have the military on guard, but we have FEMA is there in all cases. Corps of Engineers is ready if needed. The Army Corps of Engineers, very talented people. I urge everyone in the storm's path to remain alert and to follow the guidance of your state and local authorities.
On Wednesday, the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson said that a visit by a top U.S. cabinet member to Taiwan was endangering peace and stability in the region, with relations between the two powers at historic lows.
China firmly opposes official exchanges between the U.S. and Taiwan, and this position is consistent and clear. China has lodged solemn representations with the U.S. side in Beijing and Washington. The Taiwan issue is the most important and sensitive issue in Sino-US relations. The One China principle is the political foundation of Sino-US relations. We urge the U.S. to abide by the One China principle and the provisions of the 3 Sino-US joint communiques, stop all forms of official exchanges with Taiwan, handle Taiwan-related issues prudently and properly, and refrain from sending any wrong signals to the Taiwan independence forces, in order to avoid seriously damaging Sino-US relations as well as peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait.
The Pan American Health Organization warned that the COVID-19 pandemic is having a devastating effect on the care of other diseases in the region. Carissa Etienne, director of the Pan American Health Organization, made the statement in a press conference with international media. Carissa warned that there are warning signs of the effect that the pandemic will have on health in the region, highlighting the suspension of vaccination campaigns, problems with pregnancy care and non-communicable diseases, as well as shortages of drugs to treat HIV and tuberculosis.
The pandemic is also not the only health issue that we face. We are beginning to see warning signs of the devastating impact that the pandemic has had on other diseases.
A day before the anniversary of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima, the United Nations Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization has urged the world states to sign its treaty. CTBTO's Executive Secretary Lassina Zerbo urged the international community to remain optimistic and committed to the treaty's entry into force. The Executive Secretary lauded the survivors of the bombings, usually referred to as Ibras Kusha, as a forceful moral compass for humanity. Zerbo said that their pain and their stories have made nuclear risk more perceptible and concrete. We must hear them so we can act.
The 75th anniversary comes at a critical moment. Our global values and principles are under scrutiny, and past gains towards a more stable and peaceful world are under threat. The Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty is a powerful tool to achieve a world free of nuclear weapons. The Ibakusha have taught us that patience, determination and resolution are indispensable in the long battle towards nuclear disarmament. We must finish what we started, because what happened in Japan must never happen again.
In Seoul, South Korea's capital, heavy rains and floodings have left 13 people dead and over 1,500 public facilities damaged. The Central Disaster and Safety Corner headquarters said that more than 1,000 people had been forced to leave their homes in the capital, Seoul, and over 200 landslides and settlements in lowlands were registered. The current monsoon season, South Korea's longest in 7 years, hit the country with 42 consecutive days of rain and left 5,751 hectares underwater, as well as highways and bridges in Seoul. Scientists link the current monsoon season to climate change, which has also caused damages in China, Thailand, Myanmar, and India. Angola's government reported another 64 COVID-19 cases, noting the growing spread of SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus in Luanda province under a health barrier. According to the National Director of Public Health, Elga Freitas, 58 of the 64 afflicted live in different districts of Luanda, which has had many local transmissions infections. The remaining patients correspond to the northern region of Zaire. In the last 24 hours, there was another death in this capital and 27 recoveries from COVID-19. So far, the country accumulates 1,344 COVID-19 cases, which includes 59 deaths, 503 recoveries, and 782 active cases. According to Afghanistan's health ministry estimates published Wednesday, nearly a third of the country's population has been infected with the novel coronavirus. Afghan Health Minister Ahmad Hawad Osmani said at the press briefing that the figure comes from a survey based on antibody tests on around 90,500 people across the country, with technical support from the World Health Organization. To date, the nation has officially reported over 36,000 COVID-19 cases and more than 1,200 deaths. And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Laura Palmero. Thank you for watching.